What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the remote front office. Today we are going to be doing a basically recap of the first 24 hours of NBA free agency. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We are not going to cover every single deal, I'll be entirely honest, but we'll cover most deals as well as just kind of some stuff that was brought up to the light by Woj. Just for this, just to keep everything simple, I am pretty much just scrolling Woj's Twitter, just because it's a little easier to break everything down in a more orderly fashion instead of jumping back and forth to try to remember who I've talked about before I have it. But yeah, so the beginning of free agency, I'm going to be honest. I'm glad I waited to record. For the most part, on Mondays, you guys normally get an episode Monday morning, and that's mainly because I normally record Sunday night. But just because it was free agency, I waited, and I'm glad I waited because Sunday night we really didn't get a whole lot of info, right? It was mainly a lot of rumors. It was kind of speculation stuff. It wasn't necessarily any sort of actual deals, right? But so to start off, we did get right around the time that free agency started. Max Christie with the Lakers got a 4 for 32. I think that's fine. We'll see. That's not really a super big deal. Chris Paul did get waived, and the reason Chris Paul got waived is because the Warriors and Clippers were initially discussing a Paul George deal. It sounds like sides never really got super close, mainly because the Clippers didn't want bad salary. They also didn't want to help out a rival team that they would be quote unquote competing against, and so that kind of fell through. So they waived Chris Paul, and then later in the night we got an announcement that basically a farewell from the Clippers discussing why they weren't keeping Chris Paul or weren't keeping Paul George, and then that kind of happened, right? And so we got through most of the night. KCP did sign a 3 for 66 with Orlando. I do really like that for Orlando. A good spacer, a good defender. He doesn't have to be the best defender on the team, though, because obviously Orlando has plenty of young defenders. And so I think just his ability to be more of a floor spacer rather than a defender, be a good locker room guy, be a guy that's been to the playoffs, the finals, all of that, and just really be that guy that brings that locker room together. I really do like that for them. It is interesting that it was a player option at the end of it. I was kind of assuming a team option, it would be front loaded, just because then as his contract goes away, that's when Paolo and Franz Wagner and those guys are due for extensions. The next deal we got was Chris Paul, 1 year, $11 million to the Spurs. I do really like that kind of as a mentor to Trey Jones and Stephon Castle, as Castle kind of learns more of a primary role. It also allows Castle to focus more on the defensive side. And honestly, for a young guy, I don't really know if you're going to get a much better pass from a guy as far as just knowing where you want the ball. And I think that'll help with Castle's catch and shoot numbers early on. And then also, as well as they get an adult in the room and they get a good pick and roll person for Wemby, right? Obviously, you're not expecting Chris Paul to play 30, 35 minutes a game, but even at like 20 minutes a game, just to kind of be out there teaching the guys, explaining things in practice, and really just kind of understanding to get it to the spot that Wemby wants it, right? You guys, we were always joking last year about Wemby not getting an entry pass, right? Chris Paul is going to be like, hey, if you're on this side of the court, you're looking for this, this, and this, and this is where you throw the ball, etc. The next one is kind of a surprise and a little confusing for me, right? So Jonas Valanciunas got a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Wizards, right? Didn't expect it from Valanciunas because I kind of figured he would either A, get a bigger deal, or B, he would go somewhere else on the same deal, right? More of a contender. Maybe like a Memphis or something like we'd return back to Memphis, and then Zach Edey would be the backup, something like that, right? I like it and hate it for Washington, right? Because at some point you need an adult in the room that has a real salary, right? That's the first thing. Second of all, there were a lot of reports early on in the draft process that Alex Sarr viewed himself as a power forward, and maybe you treat him more like AD early in his career, where he's playing the 4 next to a traditional center, and then as he gets older, then he transitions to the 5, right? Maybe that's what Washington's thinking. I personally wouldn't have done it just because it raises your floor, right? If you're Washington, you're trying to take these next couple of years to tank, really get top value prospects in the draft, build up that young core, and then add to it, right? You don't want to add to it now where you're potentially adding 5 wins or so. Like, let's just say hypothetically, right? Valanciunas adds 5 wins. That lowers your draft odds maybe 3 spots. Maybe that works in the current NBA with how teams are falling from like 11th to 2nd, but maybe it doesn't, right? Maybe you end up, you know, with the 5th pick instead of the 3rd pick or just something like that, right? That's why it kind of confused me for the long and the short term. Mason Plumlee has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Phoenix Suns. I like that. They needed a backup center, and he was one of the better backup centers in the league last year, quite frankly. So I think that is a win-win for both sides, especially to be able to get him at that contract. Najee Marshall signed a 3-year, $27 million deal with the Mavericks. He essentially takes Derrick Jones Jr.'s spot, as Derrick Jones Jr. got to deal with the Clippers after the Paul George thing fell through. That was their next move. I think it's kind of a wash on the Dallas side. I think Marshall's a better shooter. Derrick Jones is a better defender and a better vertical spacer. But I think all in all, I think it's a win for Dallas just because you get a little bit younger. You get a guy, I was on a 3-year deal now. And I think it's really kind of a win-win for both sides here. He gets a little bit more prominent of a role than he would have gotten in New Orleans, just with the amount of talent New Orleans has. Kelly Oubre got a 2-year, $16.3 million deal to stay in Philly. I'm surprised he stayed in Philly. I feel like initially in the beginning of the year when he was really, being consistent, we kind of thought he was going to get a bigger deal from like a Charlotte or a Detroit or something. That did not end up happening. I'm really curious because Woj, as he phrased it in the contract announcement, I guess is what we'll call it, he called him their starting 2 guard. I don't know if I love him next to Maxey, even with Paul George out there, as Paul George did get his deal done. I feel like you need maybe a little bit more defense, but they're kind of running out of options as far as who that guy's going to be. So I am curious to see as far as what his minutes look like and what that lineup looks like. The next thing that happened, again, it happened about 2-3 in the morning. Paul George did get a 4-year, $212 million max extension from the Sixers. So not a surprise. It seems like the 4th year was a really big starting point for Paul George. The Clippers were very adamant that wasn't going to happen. The Warriors were willing to give it, but obviously the Clippers didn't want to do the sign and trade in order to make it work. So he ends up in Philly and really kind of just checked everybody else off the list rather early, right? There was initially rumors of Orlando were in his visits, and he didn't even really get to visits. He just talked to Philly, and it was a done deal pretty much. And then shortly after that, Tyrese Maxey got his extension announced, 5 years, $204. Obviously, they had to wait for the Paul George signing, so that they had the cap space in order to take in Paul George, and then they were able to extend Tyrese Maxey. It is fully guaranteed. There is no options either on that, so no player option or anything like that. After that, there was some stuff this morning that Jalen Smith got a 3-year, $27 million contract from the Chicago Bulls. I'm interested to see because, I haven't watched a ton of Pacers basketball, but I think as a backup 5 potentially, because we did lose Drummond to Philly, as well as having him as the option for maybe playing a little bit of 4, kind of as a floor spacer and stuff like that. It's a young guy. You take a chance. This is the kind of deal I wanted us to do. I just didn't think he'd be on the board, quite frankly. So that's why I really wasn't considering him for the offseason. But I do like the move for the Bulls. The next one sucks for the West, I'm going to be honest. So Isaiah Hartenstein got a 3-year, $87 million deal for the Thunder. So the Thunder just keep getting away with things, right? So they get Caruso to solidify basically what their starting lineup is, right? Now their closing lineup, you can be versatile. You can change things up. So Chet can play your 4, Hartenstein can play your 5. If maybe you need, maybe Chet needs a breather, obviously Hartenstein's going to be what he was at the start in New York, right? So the expectations were, okay, Mitchell Robinson will play X amount of minutes. Hartenstein comes in when he left the Clippers, and he'll provide good quality rebounding, passing, just good quality backup center minutes, right? And then Mitchell Robinson kept getting hurt all the time, and so they moved Hartenstein into the lineup. Hartenstein played really well. Another thing to note with this is depending on where the guarantees go, obviously this will work out really well for their cap space these next couple of years, but that 3rd year could get a little interesting once Shea's new contract kicks in, Chet's new contract, J-Dub's new contract kicks in. Once all those start to kick in, it could be a little interesting, so I feel like maybe that's a partial guarantee or something like that. We don't know for sure. Tobias Harris, the most mocked thing in the world. 2 years, $52 million to the Detroit Pistons. I like it. I know a lot of Pistons fans have been clowning on it. Why would you do this, that, and the third? You guys have been rebuilding long enough. It's time to get an adult in the room. He's also probably one of the best shooters on the team, right? In order to see what Cade is truly capable of, now that you gave Cade his extension, give him some spacing, right? Whether Tobias is playing your 3 or your 4, whatever, I don't care. It gives you an option. Yes, does Tobias go 2 for 7 sometimes? Sure. But you're probably not making the actual playoffs, right? If you are the Pistons, you're probably making the play-in. Possibly. That's what you're shooting for, right? So to get the option to have an adult in the room, a guy that's at least been in the playoffs, a guy that's still like, you could be like a 15 to 18 point scorer. I don't see how that's that difficult, you know? A couple of catch and shoot threes, maybe runs the offense a little bit while Cade's on the bench, different stuff like that, right? So all in all, I think it's a win for Detroit. I think it's a win for Tobias Harris, just to honestly get that done. Drew Eubanks is going to be joining the Utah Jazz for 2 years, $10 million. I think they're just taking shots in the dark, honestly, with that roster. I don't mind it. I think he could be a really good backup for them. And I also just think that, add quality guys to the rotation, maybe a little bit more of an adult in the room. Another guy, DeLon Wright, got a 1 year, $3 million deal with the Bucks. I think that's a good offer. I've always liked DeLon Wright in theory. Sometimes he just struggles and gets in his own way and can't stay healthy. So to be able to add that bench depth for Milwaukee, I think it's a good swing, right? Derek White got a contract extension. So he got 4 years, $125.9 million. And it does have a player option. So basically their entire starting lineup is extended and good to go for at least these next couple of years. We'll get to the Tatum extension here in a little bit. But it was the max extension Derek White could get. Much deserved. Again, plays his role extraordinarily well. I have no gripes with that. The next thing that came out was kind of interesting because it was about hour after the Derek White extension, right? The Boston Celtics majority owner group put the team up for sale. Like an hour and a half after the extension was done, right? And it's interesting how it was initially stated. So the Celtics say they'll sell a majority interest in early 2024 or early 2025, with the balance closing in 2028. And their current majority, whoever the leader of the majority owner group is, I'm not going to try and butcher his name, will remain as the governor until they sell off the rest of it in 2028. So I think it's almost a cash-in move, right? You have a team that just won a championship, is quote-unquote poised to be in contention for these next handful of years. You're in a big market. Well, not a big market, but a big sports market. And I just think that it's a cash-in move, right? They saw what the Suns went for. They saw what the partial and the Bucks went for. They know these expansion teams are coming up, so they're trying to. The weird thing that I would say is, why not wait for the expansion teams to be announced and get the expansion money first and then go ahead and sell the team, right? Because the thing is you're losing out on, whenever the expansion teams get announced, right? All the owners or governors or whatever you want to call them get a portion of the revenue based off of those markets being sold to those owners, right? So maybe it's a ploy to say, hey, let's cash out on Boston because maybe we want to go in on the New York team or the Seattle team or wherever the relocation teams are, right? Maybe that's their goal. I mean, they've had the team since 2002, so I think to have a team for 22 years, you'd be attached to that city. But maybe they think it's a better market to get out of the Celtics market now and then go to one of these expansion teams and put a bid in for that. Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. Again, there wasn't much reporting. It was just that initial 2 tweets from Woj, and then that was it. We're like, okay. And we got no additional information. Nicholas Batum got a 2 year, $9.6 million deal to go back to the Clippers. It's kind of interesting. Batum had contemplated retiring after he got traded last year. Last year. So to see him sign a 2 year deal was kind of interesting. But I think it's partially the fact that he knows the Clippers well, and if he wants to retire, then obviously that's where he'll want to retire, and he just kind of can settle where he wants to. One of the bigger deals that got announced, that's kind of the end of our thread here, is Klay Thompson is no longer a Golden State Warrior. The Splash Brothers are no more. The there's been a lot of reporting on this, right? So Clay ended up getting a 3-year, $50 million deal. And so we don't have the full reporting because it is a sign and trade due to just everybody's cap situations, right? Uh, so it is a 3-year, $50 million deal, no player option. It was initially reported player option, no longer a player option. But it is part of a multi-team sign and trade. So over the next couple of days, there will be multiple reports as far as the details of it, because it's multiple teams. So I'm curious what the other teams are in the sign and trade. Because the one thing we know for sure, as of right now, I will caveat that, as of right now, is that Josh Green is going to Charlotte. So Josh Green is a part of this because essentially you are taking basically more or less his contract slot plus the remainder of your mid-level exception because you only give partial to Najee Marshall, that kind of round. And then the rest of it is going to Clay, right? So partial guarantee, and then, or not partial guarantee, part of the MLE, and then you will have the um, multi-year sign and trade. So I'm curious what the other teams involved are. I know the Bulls at some point are going to be looking for a DeMar DeRozan deal. I don't know if that'll be a sign trade or if he's just walking. They are still looking for a Zach LaVine deal. They tried to send him to Golden State. Golden State said no. We were willing to take on the Chris Paul deal, it sounds like, and Wiggins. But that fell through. So that'll be interesting to see as those details start to come out. The last deal that we are going to cover is going to be Goga Bitadze is returning to the Orlando Magic on a 3-year, $25 million deal. I'm curious to see if that means they bring back Mo Wagner, just because that is, again, 3 centers that you're paying actual money now, as opposed to Goga being on his pretty small contract, and then Mo was on, I believe, an 8-year deal, or $8 million deal, right? So I wonder if they bring all 3 back. I know Wendell Carter does have his health issues, and both Mo Wagner and Goga Bitadze really did step up in that time of him being gone mid-season to really get this team back and got them into the playoffs, right? That stretch of where they were really good and they were winning games really did help this team out a lot. But that is going to be the current update. I am going to refresh one more time because we did have this happen the last time where we got DeJounte Murray announced at the end of the video. But that's all we got. Okay. So we will have a video Friday that'll recap everything that happens during the week. Ideally, as a Bulls fan, we're seeing a DeMar sign and trade, we're seeing a LaVine trade, and we're seeing a Vooch trade. Will it all happen in the course of a week? Probably not. But again, as a Bulls fan, I can hope. But yeah, so that is going to do it for the episode today. Appreciate you guys coming through, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.